Okay, welcome back, everyone, to the Buyers on Demand podcast. This podcast is hosted by none other than myself, Sean Stewart, and I'm greeted today with Donna Glazer. Donna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sean. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
of course, of course. It's an honor to have you, Donna. For everyone that's listening at home, Donna, I'll give you from my outside perspective how I would label you, but I'm curious on how you would describe yourself. From what I know about you, just from the brief interactions we've had, as well as your online presence, I could tell that you are a team leader. You're someone that's been in the business for over 30 years. You lead a team at Keller Williams. You are super inept to building deep relationships, not just on the online side, but more so physical space. I know that a lot of your business comes from past clients and referrals, which tells me that you know how to build deep relationships, which I think we're going to have a really good topic on our hands in this conversation. Donna, how would you describe yourself for the audience at home listening?
Okay. Well, when how I look at everything from when I'm showing buyers or helping sellers is basically if I can't put my name to it, I don't want to do it. It comes from when I first was born actually is that I've always tried things to see if they work, and if they don't, what happens is then I figure out a way to make it better. So when I got into real estate, I was only 21 years old and I needed to somehow come across as authentic. At first, I put on business suits and I put on lots of makeup, and I thought I was going to be a 30-year-old lady in a 21-year-old body. And what happened is I realized early on that they don't care how I look as long as I'm working with them authentically, and that I find out what they are looking for when they're buying or selling, what's most important to them.
I love it. I love it.
So
That's a perfect intro into you, Donna. Thank you for sharing that. For the audience listening at home, and Donna, we'll go into because you just touched on it a little bit with your story prior to real estate. So we'll go into that in 1 second. Anyone that's new listening to this episode, this podcast was designed. I work with two other people. We used to be in the real estate media world, so we were taking photos and videos for realtors listings. My entire family also are all realtors, so I've always been enamored in the real estate world. And due to health complications from my business partner's end, about 2 years ago, we had to switch from physical marketing to digital marketing. And it was when we started to do digital marketing, helping realtors online, we started to notice that there are many what I call predatory lead vendors out there that really target the newer side of real estate agents trying to get into this career, and they are bombarded by people saying the only way for you to gain business is for you to pay for leads, or you need to run these ads, or do whatever my specific approach is. And we found over and over again that the realtors that we were talking to on a daily basis were doing things that these companies were saying not to do. And so we made this podcast. We're like, wait a second, we're seeing that a lot of our realtors are being burned and just kind of thrown to the ground by some of these companies out here. Let's talk and have real conversations with real realtors. And Donna, you are no different from what you've told me. Again, a lot of your business has come from past clients and referrals, and maybe not so much on the digital side. And so before we get into how this business developed and how you gain your business today, can you walk us through the very beginning prior to you being a real estate agent and how you got into real estate in the first place?
well, there's two stories. I can give you the first one is that
Sure.
I went away to college and I was studying fashion merchandising and design. And I had come back to do an internship at one of the stores that I was originally a manager at. So I was there during the holidays, and a woman had come in, another realtor, but I didn't know that. She had come into the store and she had looked at me and said, "Could you help me find some things? I'm in a hurry. I'm very busy." And I said, "Sure, no problem. What are you looking for?" And so as I was talking to her, I was trying to understand what she was looking for. She had two children. Lo and behold, she ended up buying like $4,000 worth of clothes for her children in the 90s. And I was like, okay, what does she do for a realist? Pardon me, what does she do for a job? And so when I was talking to her about it, I found out that she was doing real estate and she said, "You would be really great at it. You should really think about it." And I was like, "Ah, no, I like it here." She goes, "But you're at a plateau of what you can make. You can't make as much money as you can in real estate. And you could work 24/7 or you could work 5 days a week or 2 days a week." She told me, You make your own hours." So she also made it funny and said, "You could get your hair done when you want, your nails done, you can go shopping." So I was really excited. I said, "Ooh, I'm gonna go try that route." So I went and I applied and started the classes, and it took me 4 times, 4 times, I'm not kidding, to pass this test. Remember, I was 21 years old, had no background whatsoever. So when I passed it, I was really excited, and, I started trying to figure out ways to make money. I would go in the office every day, and at the time, there was PC access, and I would look at every location, understand every home, and everything that has to do with buying and selling homes. So I was just educating myself on everything. We didn't really have the internet, we were just getting the internet. So, as I was going through all this, I realized, okay, now I have an idea of what's going on. So, where do I go? And then, like you said, the sharks started calling. They said, "You're a new agent. Now's time to buy leads. Now's time to, do my program," and so forth. So, yes, lo and behold, I went ahead and did that. It was the funniest thing because I didn't really get anywhere with it. I did a lot of companies, and I just kept trying and trying and trying because I was 21. I had no sphere really of friends because they were barely buying. They just got out of college. No one was really helping me. Then I concentrated on open houses. And that's where I realized, oh, I spent all this money, time, and energy to do the activities that are not working when I could just go in front and talk to people, and if they like me and trust me, they're going to do business with me. Didn't matter if I was 21 or 41 at that time. They loved me, and that's when I started to build my business. With that said, my mother had given me my first client 6 months in because she saw me, she saw how stressed I was, and she was like, "You're still living at home, you're never going to get out, you went to college, and you're not even doing what you were supposed to be doing. So here's a lead, go try to make ends meet with it." So I did. And I was working at a restaurant as a waitress part time while I was going through real estate, just so that I could get my feet off the ground and make some sort of money. Then I got a call from these people saying they wanted to buy on a Saturday, Sunday while I was working in the restaurant. And I was one of their top servers, so I couldn't leave. So I ended up doing a shift, and this couple came in, and I'll never forget this. The lady was in her 30s, I was in my early 20s, and she walked in and she was just beautiful. She was decked out, she had Gucci on, Prada, etc. So I was like, wow, I want to be like her, right? She's just awesome. Well, lo and behold, she sat in my hand, in my section, and she was one of the turning points in my career, let's say the least. So she came in with her boyfriend, significant other. They sat in my station. They ordered food. And at the time, Fridays was where I was working. They had beepers. So this woman would see that I'm taking orders with someone else and would just keep beeping me. And she ended up ordering an iced tea, and I asked her with sugar or not, those things. Well, the order came out wrong. And she just got really upset with me and started telling me that I'm a bottom feeder and I don't know what I'm doing. And I was real pleasant, just fun and friendly, and I was like, "Wow, I'm trying to go to real estate." She goes, "Well, that's good because waitressing is never gonna get you anywhere." And I said, "Well, I've gotta start somewhere, and this is where I'm starting." I never knew what she did or anything, and so then her significant other came up to me, when they were leaving and said, "Here's a tip for $5." And I'm like, "I don't want your $5," because he goes, "I'm sorry she was so rude to you and was just talking down to you and belittling you." And I said, "I don't want your $5. It's fine. I'm gonna make myself something, I'm gonna do something." So that's kinda how the turning point happened is that now I had all the drive to go forward and show everybody that I could do real estate. I had my mom's client, a friend that was a client of mine, and then so I gave my 2-week notice, and then I started full time in real estate, and I just went every single day to the office. I did every single open house I could do. I took people's calls at the time. There were floor calls. I did that. I worked leads. I cold called. I even did expireds and for sale by owners, and that's why I'm where I'm at now.
With all of those that you did, and there's so many questions I have based on that story. And thank you for really giving the full details of the story, because now I have many jumping off points that I can reference back to. But you mentioned, you basically transitioned from part time to full time, and now you're doing everything. So my first two questions I have is, how did you manage your time now that you have, whatever, 8+ hours a day now that you're dedicating to real estate? And the second question I had is, with all the different things that you were focusing on, how did you figure out which one to really focus in on, or were you just doing everything all at once? Yeah.
Yeah, so my first year I was negative $36,000. No joke. My parents were so disappointed. So I told them that I was working every single angle to make sure that I can find clients. And what had happened is basically when I went to do the open houses is when I started to get people to like me, trust me, and want to go show homes or buy homes with me. And that's really what I really concentrated on is the open houses, because calling people was great, but if they weren't raising their hand and saying, "Hey, I want to buy a house. Hey, I want to sell a house," it was really difficult. And being turned down so many no's with expireds and for sale by owners, I was just like,
Hmm.
I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to have to go a different route. I don't want to be yelled at every day when I could just do what I absolutely love, which was
Sure.
doing the open houses and meeting people. So that's kind of where I'm at. And what was your second question? I'm sorry.
How you managed your time, because you went from part time to full time. So this is a huge leap for you, where you now, especially in real estate, because I talk to a lot of people where they, for example, were working a regular kind of 9 to 5 job prior to real estate. And so you're so used to this world of like, okay, I come in at 9 and I do X, Y, and Z that basically the boss has given me. But when you're a realtor, you now have this whole new lifestyle that you have to adopt to of, okay, how am I going to schedule my day? When am I going to show up to the office? So I'm curious how you did it in your first year.
Well, my first year, it was pretty much all over, the board. I was trying everything. I was just going in. What I did is I really educated myself on the markets that I was going to serve. So then when I went out, I knew where the schools were. I knew what kind of homes were in the neighborhood. And I also did comparables. I always did my comps. So I'd have an idea of what I was doing, because where I first started, they didn't give me that. And I was like, okay, I've got to figure it out. And I started going on the website and, searching for that kind of information. So I basically worked like 80-hour work weeks, just kept going. There was no real schedule at the time, just kept going. I said, I have drive. I am hustling. I'm going to do this.
Jeez.
I know.
Yeah, no. And I love that you shared. I mean, obviously, like, quite unfortunate, but obviously you can look back at it as a good time in your life now in hindsight. But I love that you shared that your first year, it didn't go as planned. Like you mentioned, you were in the hole quite a bit. And again, I say that, obviously it's an unfortunate situation, but I love the rawness, the realness to what you're describing, and maybe how others looked at you, because this is this is why we do this podcast. We try to share the realness. It's not like your first year, as soon as you start, you're going to have everything figured out. It takes a lot of getting used to. You're adopting a new lifestyle on your behalf. You have to figure out how to gain business yourself, what type of workflow every single day to follow. And so I love that you shared that. I feel like that was really authentic, that a lot of people try to hide, especially in this world of social media where we just always show the highlights of our life. We never really talk about, no, when we first started, it was a lot of trial by fire. So, kudos to you on that end.
Thank you.
I'm curious. You mentioned open houses as kind of a lead strategy, and that out of the seven now, because I said kind of the same line yesterday. I said to the realtor I was talking to yesterday, I said five out of the six people I had talked to since yesterday had mentioned open houses as a dominant strategy when they're first starting out, and now you would be number six. So six out of the seven people that I've talked to so far have mentioned, yeah, I really lean into open houses, especially when I'm starting out, because similar to what you were describing, you don't have to deal with being rejected so much so quickly. You can only really work with people who are at least somewhat interested if they're walking through an open house. Like there's some level of intent there. You also get to talk face to face. You can read body language, a little bit easier to develop relationships. And so, I talked to many realtors that there's this debate. I don't know if you've seen it when it comes to open houses where some realtors are like, it's a waste of time, don't ever do it. And some realtors like, it's the best thing since sliced bread. And more and more that I talk to more realtors, I kind of lean towards like, this is actually a really, really good approach because there's so many things that you can do in an open house. You can create content, you can talk to the neighbors, potentially door knock and find new referrals, you can talk to people that are walking in. And so I love that you shared that. I'm
Yes.
curious, this is when you first started. Do you still adopt this kind of high volume open house strategy today? I mean, I know now things are a little bit different. You lead a team. What do you advise your team to focus on when they're building, and what do you focus on as a daily basis?
Well, it's funny because, yes, with my team, I am really trying to generate the fact that you will get leads. Even if you get one person from there, at least they got to meet you. And now you have to get them to trust you and wanna be with you, right? And basically cultivate them
Mm-hmm.
instead. So you met this person or couple, and when, you start having a relationship, you're talking to them, but you really don't talk about real estate. You're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, how's the weather?" No, you don't even say, "How's the weather?" "How are you doing today?" "How's the weather?" "Oh, you have some adorable children. Do they go to school around here?" You try to get to know them on a personal basis first, and then you can come around. I always say we don't really sell homes, we help people find homes when we're working buyers. I said, "You can't sell somebody something they don't want. They have to help
Mm-hmm.
you by finding what they want." And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where my strategy goes, but with my open houses, we do a lot of pre-marketing, especially social media, like you
Yeah.
said. We're really getting into that space. We didn't do it before. It's been about 2 years now where we're really heavily exploring it and
Mm-hmm.
working as we can to, do the best we can to get leads from there. So with open houses, we just have a strategic plan in line that we know exactly what we're doing every step of the way. So if a client does come, we do have some giveaways. We also do like raffles, and then we have our literature there that they can come and meet my team and say, "Oh, I'd like to know who your buyer's agent is," and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. And then we also try to work with them to get them signed up on a search and then start the buyer process with them. But most of the time when we're out, we're just trying to get them to like us first and then have that conversation later on and do a buyer's consult presentation.
And I love what you said about the pre-marketing prior to the open house because, when I talk to agents about open houses, some of them have told me, yeah, like most people think about it as gaining potential buyer leads or clients, but it's also a really good way to get more listings because I just was talking to a realtor yesterday actually who said, yeah, my last client actually came from an open house and they basically told me that I was using this experience as a test to see how you would market our home. And because you did such a good job at the open house, I can see all your signs, materials, everything online, as well as in the neighborhood, how you're interacting with the neighborhood. I'd like you to sell my home doing the exact same thing. And so I'm curious on your end if you've experienced similar, circumstances where someone comes in and they say, you know what, I'm actually not looking to buy a home. I'm actually looking to sell my home
Yes.
yeah, from an open house. Yeah.
Absolutely. We actually have a listing going on right now in Wheaton that they saw what we did to market their home, their neighbor's home, and they called me a year later and
Yeah,
remembered me from there. I didn't have them on, I never met them, and they watched
sure.
what we did. They were creeping us in a good way, but they were.
Yeah.
And the good news is now we have that listing, so you are correct that you never know, and people always test. I also have agents coming in to see if they wanna work, with us on our team as well, and, so there's so many different ways because they wanna see what we're doing differently than either their team or themselves. And, I always say if you're gonna rip off, that's great because that's a compliment to me as an agent, and most people don't. They're not going to do what I do. They say they are, but 10% will. The other 90% are not going to.
I want to touch on what you said prior at the beginning of this conversation when you mentioned developing trust, right? You mentioned like you don't want to just someone comes in and asks how's the weather, right? You want to get a little bit, you mentioned kind of getting more personal, asking about their kids and whatnot. I'm curious if we can dive a little bit deeper into that because I know a lot of agents, especially when they're starting out, they might look at open houses and like, okay, I'm going to do this, but then when the people start coming through the door, it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? Do I just say, hey, let me know if you have any questions? No, probably not. Should I just have a brochure, that's on the table? No, probably not. Like, there's probably a better way where you can develop, some sort of relationship there. And so I'm curious if you have any strategies, protocols, tips, anything like that during your open house experience that you can share. Again, you alluded to a couple of them at the beginning when it comes to developing the familial relationship, but I'm curious if you have anything else that you use.
Well, it's funny because when you do an open house, they are coming to you. I tell my team this all the time, and I used to tell myself is that these people are coming because they have some sort of reason. And even if they're just looky loos, you still are developing that relationship so eventually they can come back to you and either purchase or sell. Well, when we do the open houses, our main focus is that we want to get a buyer to buy that home, whether it's our people or buying it or another agent's. We'd ever turn down another agent's clients ever, and we're never going to go in and poach those clients ever. They're not people that we wanna deal with. With that said, we want them to feel comfortable, so the last 3 homes we sold, the buyer came through the open house, and my team talked to them, made them love what the home had to offer, explained the space, explained that there were amenities around, how close the schools were, and they kept the rapport, and then the agent called me and said, "My clients love the home." They don't even know that we were talking to them about the whole entire home, so then they wrote on it, and we ended up selling it, and we knew how interested they were, so we could tell the sellers we met the clients and that we are, going to go ahead and, work with them because they are interested. However, they're working with an agent, and we have no problem working with that agent, so that is one way we do that. Another way is a couple years ago, I've had people through open houses, and then they end up coming back to me later on because they tried another real estate agent and it didn't
Yeah.
work out, and they
Yeah.
remembered my energy and said, "Can we come and work with you?" And I said, "As long as you're not signed with anybody, I'm not stepping on anyone's toes, but let's
Sure.
go ahead and do that." And so those are little strategies we do that we get in front of them and work to maintain the relationship. It's always about the relationship. It's never about the sale.
I love that. That's it. No, that's a great way that you just ended that. Always about the relationship, never about the sale. What are some ways? Because I really want to touch on that topic. I think
Sure.
because the majority of your business comes from, again, past clients, referrals, that tells me when you have a majority word of mouth business, it tells me that you know how to develop deep relationships. And so, my question for you is how do you how do you foster this conversation or relationship with a potential client where they feel like, no, this isn't just someone trying to sell me, this is actually my my back pocket, my you're basically like a quarterback for them, for a sports analogy,
Yes.
like you you have figured out a way where I can go above and beyond with every single interaction that I have with these folks. So much to the point where they will say after they're done, "Hey, I'm actually going to refer you to this person over here because you did such a good job." What are some of those key pillars that you implement every single time you start a relationship with someone?
Well, I have in my mind is that it's the biggest investment of one's person's life more than likely. And they don't know our process like we know it. It's just like going to a dentist. I don't know how to clean teeth, right?
Hmm.
So, what I do is I say, okay, they're looking at this home and they don't really know what's going on. So, I'm obviously preparing them with all the information, all the data, explaining the market search, what's happening in the market. But then I go deeper. And as we're going through it, I have stellar home inspectors, and I wouldn't care if they break the deal. If it's a lemon, I don't want them to buy the house, right? So it brings in the fact that let's say now we just had this on a deal we just did a couple days ago, is that they wanted us to waive a home inspection and I just wouldn't do it. So with that said, we had to come up with different ideas to make the people understand that we really want the home, but we need to take care of a few things. And so how it actually happened is bottom line is I called a contractor in, I called a plumber in, and I got pretty much everyone in to check it out before we went under contract with them to make sure that this is a solid home. Now that is a huge risk, but I needed to do it because I can't sell a house without a home inspection unless it's an investor. A family, a person that doesn't know much about it, it would break my heart if they bought a home and it became a lemon. So, knock on wood, that hasn't happened yet. However, yeah, that's how I look at it. So you're right as far as they don't know basically what to expect until you tell them. And we have a stellar concierge program from everything from a contractor to a plumber, the home inspector, we have the appraisal person, anything we need, we have access to. And that's because of 30 years of doing this, I realize people don't know what you don't tell them, right? They don't
Sure.
understand unless you guide them. And that's what it is. It's all about, like I said at the beginning, is I will not sell them a house. I'm going to help them. They're going to figure it out. They're going to use the comparable properties and we're going to work together to get to the end result, which is to get them the home they deserve and want. With that said, that is how I structure it. They literally have to have a buyer's consult with me before I'll go out with them. And of course, a buyer's agency agreement as well. And so,
Yeah.
yep, that's and everything is in that agreement. Like it tells them how much an FHA buyer can borrow, like up to. It tells them how much points they can get or how much closing costs are. So everything is in there. It's stellar.
You mentioned one thing that's really interesting. You basically are kind of the head of a network of valuable resources for someone during this transition period, where if they have a question, you probably know someone that can provide a solution. And that tells me right there, okay, I can understand how a buyer or seller can view you as such a valuable asset because you literally have the answer to every single question they have. My question for you regarding that is when you are someone, like again, if I'm a newer agent, we have a lot of new agents that listen to this show, so I kind of refer back to them a lot. If they are building this web of resources where, okay, I have the home inspector here, I have this person over here, I have all these people in my back pocket, I'm a really good valuable resource. How do they approach that with their client? Are you proactive with them saying, hey, now that you've done this X, Y, and Z, we're going to need to go and connect you with the home inspector, or do you wait for them to ask you certain questions? Because I can see both sides. I can see the proactiveness being very good. However, you don't want to overwhelm the client either by saying,
Right.
hey, now that you're done with this, we have 20 other steps to go. And so I'm curious how you walk that line.
Well, it's funny because it goes both ways. When I'm out showing property, a lot of my clients I let them look at the property and make their own judgment of what's going on, how the home is. We're not talking about, pink kitchens or, they like the carpet, because all those things can be changed, right? So I tell them I'm the eyes and the ears of the property while they look around. I'm looking for things that might be deal breakers or that could be a problem in the future and that we may have to pull in somebody else. And like, let's say there's water in the basement, for instance. Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves with the water in the basement. It could be an easy fix. We don't know what happened, but if you love the home, why don't we look into it? We'll ask the seller if they know what's going on, if they've had a continuous problem, or is this one, because we had huge rainfalls, or the sub pump went out, or, the pipes are broken. Whatever it is, we could always fix it as long as we have the people. So it's funny because I'll say, oh, I've got a guy for that. Oh, I've got a gal for that. And they love that because they know that I'm watching the whole entire transaction because it is their biggest investment, that I put the care into it to make sure
Hmm.
they know that I won't work with this house if it's not going to be a good fit for you, because if we can't find out these problems, then why are we buying it? We could go find something else. But if you
Sure.
absolutely love this, let's see what's going on and then make a decision based on that. And we just had a home like that, like I said, and we ended up going under contract and we're going to close and everything's great. So that's one way to do it. The other way is when we're talking in my buyer's consult, I start with how a buyer's agent works and what the buyer agreement is. And then we end up going into what steps they need. So there's like 6 steps to get to home ownership. And then we tell them that, it's great that you came here and we have 3 preferred lenders. We actually have more. However, we have at least 3 that you can contact and you could work with them all. But any of them, they're all great. We also then once we go under contract, we have home inspectors that I vetted and that have done a great job and will tell you, I tell them up front, he will break a deal if it's not a good. I want them to. I'm not going to sell something that is going to ruin my reputation or hurt the client, right? It's always about hurting the client first. However, I don't want to just sell them something because I told you at the beginning I don't sell them, it's help them. And then finally, here's the attorneys that we highly recommend, and this is where we're at with it and so forth. So that is in my blueprint of what we do. The buyer's guide is about 45-minute conversation. And then we decide if we're a good fit. If they don't if we don't jive and we don't mesh good together, then it's okay. We just say, you know what? I don't feel like this is a good fit. However, I wish you the best. And then I let them go. I don't want to work with people who don't want to work with me because I'll put my name on it if it's a good thing.
You bring up such a great point when it comes to, and this ties back to building trust with potential clients and ultimately clients, because what you're describing is essentially, and you keep bringing up this point of like, I don't sell homes, you know, and I love that because I can tell that you operate from a different mindset of not a traditional salesperson, but more so like a consultant,
Yes.
and in the sense of you will actively challenge their beliefs, their decision making for the betterment of their own sake. If they, for example, want to buy a home or sell a home and you think for whatever reason that is not in their best interest, you will be upfront about that and sacrifice potentially expediting the deal or whatever, having a deal at a bigger commission for the sake of the betterment of the client on your behalf. And I love that you're mentioning this because this is also an interesting line that you can play as well, where some agents you'll see a lot, especially when we're talking with newer agents, where they're so desperate to close a deal that they're just the yes men. Yeah, you want to go with that home? Sure, let's do it. You want to sell at that price? Sure, let's do it. No worries. Like no challenge at all. Then you have the other agents where sometimes they can come off a little bit too combative, and the client, it just becomes too many disagreements, and it makes for a poor relationship, which then doesn't lead to a business like yours where you have majority referrals, right? And so I'm curious if you have any tips in that regard on how to walk that line between being too agreeable and too combative to make for a good good relationship?
Well, yes, Sean, you have to know who you're working with, who you're showing homes to, who you're helping list a home with to eventually, sell it. Again, the word sell to me is help find. With that said, what I like to do is basically I try to see how they're feeling on the situation. If I can tell that they are just swaying away from it, I'm
Hmm.
not going to sit there and tell them that this is the best home and this is what you need to do. We're going to say if it's meant to be, it's going to be. And if it's not, it's okay. We'll go find you
Hmm.
the next one. So I need to make sure that everyone knows that's not the way I work. And then combative, I don't think I've had anyone come back and throw punches back and forth as far as saying, oh, you're being too aggressive or
Yeah.
you're not looking out for my best interest. So I've been lucky
Fantastic.
with that. However, with new agents, I think you just have to be yourself, talk to them, tell them that I don't understand this situation. Let's send it over to a contractor to look at. Or I'll text people that are in my book and say, "Hey, I found this. What is this?" Like if there's something odd in the house, I'll ask the agent if I could take a picture of it, and they usually say yes, and then we say, "Okay, we're interested in buying it, but we don't understand this electrical thing," or whatever it is, but always get permission, and then we bring it back to the professional, to the contractor, to the plumber, to the electrician, so they feel like we're still helping them, but we're not doing it at a deterrent of them or a push, like, make them feel bad. So I always say, let's work really slow and not worry about anything to do with money here. We're worried about the relationship first, and we're going to work to help you find what's wrong with the home and we're going to find solutions for what's wrong. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll just not worry about it because the relationship is more valuable to me any day than compensation ever, is because I could care less if I have 10 deals and that's it, and I made all this money. I'd rather have 30 people all being raving fans of me, referring
Hmm.
people, and knowing what I'm going to do for their family
Exactly.
and friends. They never have to worry. It like you said, it's a one-stop shop with me. They just feel like I'm going to take all that stress away from them. All they have to worry
Sure.
about is getting the mortgage or closing and packings.
Sure. I love that. I love everything you said, especially the raving fans bit. I use that specific phrase on a pretty much daily basis, especially in this world of social media where like everyone kind of looks at vanity metrics, those being how many followers do you have, how many likes do you have, how many views do you have. When I always tell a lot of people that I talk to, especially realtors, because you can get so caught up in how many views did my home tour get or whatever the case is. It's like I'd rather have 100 raving fans than a million people that could give a crap about me, you know. And so I totally relate to that on every single level. And I've noticed that even for myself with some of my social medias where I might only have on like, when I was first starting out, I'd have 200 followers, but the depth of those followers, the connections that I was having, like what we're having today, it's like, man, these 200 followers, this is great. Like I could, this, if I were a realtor, like this would be a really solid book of business that I could have with just a small pool of people. These are actual good audience. And it's due to what you're saying, delivering, over delivering in many cases, the value of that relationship and really over indexing on your time with your client. So I love everything that you've been saying so far. So, Donna, and this completely reminds me of something that I forgot to ask you at the very beginning of this conversation. And what you're saying about these deep relationships that you're building, I assume has a lot to do with you being inducted into the Hall of Fame for ReMax. Can you tell us a little bit about what it took to be a Hall of Fame inductee?
Blood, sweat, and tears, working nonstop 24/7 to get there. But basically, it was to get 1 million in commissions, gross commissions, in order to become one of their members into their elite circle of the Hall of Fame. And then I did the platinum there, which was two sales of 250 to 500,000. And again, another very hard, a hard road to go, but I was able to accomplish it. So, yes.
And we'll see if it's in the final edit here. What for the audience at home? I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's going to be in here or not. But you also mentioned, Donna, that you consistently over 20 years were making six figures, and it's interesting to me hearing that because you are able to consistently find success using what many people might refer to as potentially an inconsistent source of business, being relying on referrals, past clients, and word of mouth, right? For the people that are just starting out, it's like, okay, well, how am I ever going to really get this engine going? And at a certain point, right, I think people say like, whatever, 5 to 7 years is when, you try to reach out or whatever the case is. But
Right.
at a certain point, the engine starts to kind of turn on its own. And so I'm curious what kind of secrets that you can share, or what strategies you employed to consistently bring in these six figures every year, really relying on word of mouth, sphere of influence, that kind of thing.
Well, yes, I used to do events as well. I still do some events, but that was one of my bread and butters when I first started. And then I also did like postcards, and I remember them for their what is it? Their anniversaries and their birthdays. So I'm huge with making sure that the client becomes one of my best friends, and we call them forever clients. I sometimes spend more time with my clients than I do with my friends that I got without being in real estate, and it's probably because those people see a side of me and know that I'm really caring and passionate about their success and helping them grow, and so a lot of times they become generational wealth through me, is that they buy their first home, then they go and buy another home, and they rent it out. So those are things that I do that perhaps, agents that are new, is that your client is somebody that needs to be somebody that you can think of as a friend, not to bug them, not to do anything like call them all the time, don't harass them. Just give them those little nudges here and there saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," or "I was in a neighborhood and I saw that you have now shutters on your front
Mm,
windows, and it looks fantastic. I was showing 123 Main Street, saw yours. I just wanted to let you know." And those are little things that people are like, "Wow, she's not just a realtor, she is actually somebody who cares about me and notices the difference." So those are things that I would tell newer agents to do, is, and don't worry about it. Just keep building your pipeline of people. Go to the mall, go. I
yeah.
used to go, and it's funny because my old boss saw me not too long ago, my old manager previously, and he came up to me and said, "I remember when you were 21 years old and I told you that I could not find any clients." He said, "Well, then you're 21, go out to the bar, go meet people." So I go and meet people, and I have to tell you, it was the funniest thing in the world. I'd come home with like 10 names, and I didn't have a boyfriend at the time, so I had 10 names. Well, they were mostly guys, and they all wanted to buy investment, but I'd have to weed them out. And it was so funny because I go back to Bill, if you're listening, and I go back to him and I would say, "What do I do?" And he goes, "Donna, you got all those leads. Great. Now we're gonna go down and see which ones are real." And we would sell one house from that because he would help me and say, "Donna, 9 of them want a date, 1 wants to buy. Let's go with the one who wants to buy." And I'm not kidding you. That's kind of what happened. And my
That's awesome.
clients actually, it's funny, about 10 of them have become realtors because they have seen how I do my business and I make it so easy flowing that they don't see the stress level or anything. Then they get into it and go, "Wow, I had no idea this
Sure.
is an easy business, but yet it's really hard." And the lead is
Sure.
the most important. If you have no lead,
Sure.
you have no business.
Sure. Maybe simple business, but very difficult, execution,
Yes.
right? Like is what you're describing. Yeah, it's simple, not easy.
Okay,
Totally.
simple one, not easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No, totally. No, I say that just because I hear that phrase a lot where people say it's simple, not easy. So I totally relate to what you're saying. And I want to piggyback on what you were saying about treating your clients as friends, but not also kind of just bugging them 24/7. And I think that's really important to touch on in this episode because unfortunately what a lot of people don't adopt is this mindset of like how you're describing. You're actually helping someone potentially build generational wealth. You're actually helping them transform their life. When to a lot of people it just seems like this is a sale. This is the average sales cycle. Once the deal is over, I get my commission check, wipe my hands clean, and I go to the next person. But you have found a way where you can, and I love that you brought some really tactical examples about the shutters and stuff, because you found a way to create value-based follow-up, not just like, hey, just checking in, seeing, are you looking to buy your second home? It's like, no, there's a reason why I'm actually reaching out to you. Hey, I was in the area and I saw that there's an event happening right next to your house. Hey, this happened, so I decided to reach out. For someone who, especially like if I were working with a realtor and if they were just texting me every couple months saying, hey, how's it going? I'd be really skeptical of it. But when you bring a reason to that follow up of, hey, I just thought of you doing this, it's like, oh, wow, like this is actually take away the real estate, conversation. This is actually just a human to human interaction. And so I love that you touched on that. I'm curious with that because I think there's so much you can dive deep into this.
Yes.
How do you go about properly or creating the proper cadence? Sorry, is what I'm looking for. How do you create the proper cadence after a deal is done to reach out to someone? It doesn't sound like you're reaching out to them every single day. You're probably not reaching out to them every single week. It might just be on occasion, or maybe it's something different. So I'm curious to hear how you do it.
Well, it's funny because when I close a home, we definitely give a nice gift to the clients, but we try to make it personal to what they have said as far as what they like if they like a certain wine or they have dogs or anything like that. And we try to gauge it so that it's personable, not just one, like it's just Donna stuff or just the team stuff. We add that in there, but we give them something of personal taste that they have shown if we've seen it or they've said, "Hey, my favorite restaurant." So that's one thing, and then in 30 days, I'm calling them, asking them well, first week, we usually will call and check up and ask how they're doing and see if there's anything they need. We're here for them, and then we usually will leave it alone for about 30 days. We're sending a thank you card, and then 30 days later, my assistant Vicky is checking with them to make sure everything is good and that we are, that everything went well. And if there's anything we needed to do better, we used to send out surveys. However, I'm not good at getting reviews. And it's not because I won't get them. It's because I have a hard time with them. My clients already 90% have given me business. They don't need to go put some rah rah hey hey out there. And if I go and ask them, it's almost like I'm putting them out because they already referred me. So why do you want to go on this platform? A lot of people don't like doing it. And so I've gotten away with it and said, I'm not going to push that. I've tried to push it, so we do a review, we ask for a review, we ask if we did a good job. We also ask if all our contractors and our preferred partners have done a good job so that we can tweak it, because if we keep hearing things that aren't good, we're going to have a conversation around that and then decide, is that partner going to be gone and we move in a new partner, because it's got to be plug and play. We have people that are on our back end that we will keep adding. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but if they're doing a good job, we're not going to kick them off. And
Sure.
we don't want to give, like you said, overwhelming amount of information unless they ask for it to the consumer. So with that said, where I'm going with this is that we have a stellar after after sale program. And
I
we
love
do,
that.
like, anything, like I said, ask them if there's anything we can do, and then we start marketing them for, the we have a top 100, it's VIP service, and if it's somebody that we put in there, then they start being they're going to be going to events, or they're going to be our test pilots. Hey, we've got a new tool we want to use, or we have new marketing we want your input on, and etc. We have something coming up for Mother's Day right now that is going to hopefully make our business bloom even more. However, I don't care about that. I care more about giving back because all these people have given to us and made us successful. So they're all going to come and they get a free photo with us with a photographer. So we're
That's awesome.
excited. So
I
we're going
love
to
it.
be doing that. Yes.
You're saying your after sale program. Yeah, I was curious to hear a little bit more about that.
Oh,
What,
yes.
yeah, what does that after sale program look like?
Absolutely. So basically, they would go into our database and we would be reaching out 1 week after, asking them how their first week was, whether they were upgrading the home or if they are living in the home, and if there's anything we can do that would eliminate any more stress for them, such as a contractor or plumber, etc. Then the next, we would go about a month later and then we start reaching out to them again and asking them how the move went, if there's anything they need, and then we go from there. Then we do 3, 6, and 12 months. Then we also go organically every single year and never fail to send them anything. So the things that we send happen to be, little tidbits of what's happening in the neighborhood, such as wine festivals or for Halloween, the haunted houses or pumpkin patches. So we're always giving them something of value or a new restaurant. You want to try a new restaurant out? We were able to get a discount on the restaurant for you. Give my code and you can go in. And then we end up paying for it sometimes or working as a partnership.
I love it. I love it. This is exactly aligned with my previous question that I was going to ask you, which is that it seems like everything that you do is value first. It's like I know a lot of realtors like to quote Gary Vee, so I'll quote him with the jab, 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 right hook kind of philosophy. It's like just give, 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 and eventually ask, or it'll seem natural to ask. And uh, I I totally align with that. I think that the best relationships that I've built have been same thing that you're describing. Value first, see how the partnership works, just see how you can provide any sort of help. And if they want or if they like the help that you provide, they might just on their own ask for more stuff. And so I love that you said that. And that goes into my question with marketing. There are good ways to do marketing, there are bad ways to do marketing, right? And so I'm curious with your 30 plus years in the business. Typically, I would try to do something cute like give us in 30 years of real estate, give us 30 of the best marketing tips. We don't have all day to give, for you to give 30 marketing tips. So what I'll ask is, out of those 30 years, do you have three of your best marketing tips that you provide to some of the new realtors maybe that you lead today?
My best marketing tips, you would say, for getting clients engagement is basically, I would say one of them would be the cards, right? The individual cards saying your birthday cards, handwritten cards. That would be one of the things that I would do. And again, not really asking them for business, thanking them for business, but not going out there saying, by the way, if you have a family or friend looking to buy or sell, we don't really try to touch on that too much because, again, it's overselling and we don't want to do that. The next thing is making sure you brand yourself. Make sure they know who you are at all times. If they can raise their hand and say, how many realtors you know, because there's so many realtors out there. And at the end of the day, I want to be number one or at least number two in their mind, and they should be able to just come back to us. So you need to keep going and branding and making sure they know who you are and make sure that you're out in front in social media. I'm realizing that a lot of clients are looking that route now. You still have people still looking at postcards and mailers and stuff that other things as well, right? But my those would be those two would be really big on my list. And the third is we do postcards all the time that I think that they see they see us out there and they know that we're still there, and we're tapping into the older generation who doesn't follow TikTok, Instagram, and all that. Like Gary Vee said, I absolutely love Gary Vee, so I'll put a plug in there. And yeah, that's why I'm actually doing this now, is because of Gary Vee. He said, just get your name out there and content out there. And people will see you, like you, trust you, and they want to do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Awesome. Awesome. Donna, it's been a pleasure. This has been an awesome conversation. This is one of those conversations that I think I could spend another 2 hours asking you questions just because you have such depth of experience in
Thank
the real estate space. Is there anything that you want to end off this episode with in regards to our audience? Do you have anything coming up? Do you have anything that you want to promote? Anywhere they can, the audience can find you? Anything like that? The floor is yours.
Great. Well, I have an event that's coming up. It's my VIP club event, and it is going to be at my office at Keller Williams in Downers Grove. And it's going to be and actually, there's going to be a photographer here who is going to be taking photos of mommy and me. So my clients are going to bring in their children or their fur babies or their significant others, I don't care. And they're going to shine as far as, get in here. So that's where we're at it. And it's April 18th. And then there's going to be giveaways, and we're also going to have some refreshments and lunch. And it's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that Saturday, which is April 18th at 5121 North Main Street in Downers Grove. And you can always reach out to me at donnaglazer.com. And any questions, any new agents wanting somebody to talk to, I'm all ears, and I'll help you as much as possible, because that's why I developed my team, is to make sure that they never had to go through my pain, and that because I wanted to give class A service to my clients, I wanted to make sure that I basically don't have to work a day of my life any longer, because I have a great team. And if you love what you do, you never have to work, right? So that's what I have for you guys. But thank you for this wonderful opportunity, Sean. Appreciate you very much for thinking of me and bringing me on. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It was like I said, it's a pleasure. We'll have to have you on another
Yes.
episode, Donna. Thank you again, and for anyone listening, thank you for tuning in to the Buyers on Demand podcast. The reception to the podcast lately has been great, so thank you to everyone tuning in, and more episodes to come very soon. So thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sean.